Hi. So there is this debate that has been, well, it's not a debate because it's been done now, but something that our government decided that over 75's wouldn't get free TV license, free BBC TV license. So obviously it's a contentious issue, as everything is these days. I mean, people will always be polarized between whether is it good for them or is it isn't good for them. And then that's it. Then the tribalism kicks in. But what for firstly, there's two aspects for this for me. One of them, firstly, is should anyone pay a BBC TV license? I mean, do we need to pay for the BBC? I mean, we don't pay for other TV channels unless we want them, unless there's channels that we pay for, like say Sky television channels, well, Virgin, just whatever TV you pay for that you choose to pay for, and then that obviously goes towards it. I guess you don't get adverts on BBC, which is why then they need different funding. But I mean, if you want to watch the TV, then you can then watch the adverts that are on that channel, and therefore that's how the channel's paying for itself, by you watching the adverts. So that makes a lot more sense to me than just saying everyone has to pay so we don't have adverts, but everyone's paying, even the people that are not watching the adverts, that they're paying to not be there. So, I mean, I just think it would be better for the BBC websites, BBC TV channels, whatever, to be ran in the same way other channels are. Because that seems the most fair way to me. That seems the most fair way to do it. Like the adverts, the advertising revenue way that every single other TV channel, unless even if it's say the football channels, you pay for them, but you're not paying the full amount that it would cost to have those if they didn't have advertisements that were then paying some of that amount. So that seems the most fair way. So basically, on the overall question, I think no one should have to pay. But so we're going to work on the assumption that some people have to pay. So if some people are having to pay, why should the over 75s not pay? So, I mean, I would on obviously the subject, I said on the point that not everybody watches it, but everyone then has to pay for it if you have a TV. On that point, I would suggest that more older people do watch BBC TV than younger people, because I know that we'd either watch Netflix, we'll watch YouTube, we'll just watch other things. Do you know what I mean? Like all the big programs that people, like even the TV series that people watch, like say Love Island, for example. What other ones? Just they're not on the BBC. So I would suggest that a higher percentage of over 75 people will be watching the BBC than say other demographics. Obviously, I don't have the statistics for that, but it just would make sense to me if it was. So yeah. So why would they not have to pay? I mean, I guess, yeah. Obviously, if you read the article, they're saying that people will not have to pay if they're on some sort of pension benefit. So obviously, they're not charging the people that don't have as much money. But see, that's where the real question comes in for me. Is the real question comes in for me is where people that aren't necessarily, not they're not watching it, but the old people over 75. I mean, I don't know what it's like for older people everywhere, but I have noticed, and definitely in the area that I live, that a lot of older people own houses. They have their own home. Some of them have quite large houses that they've had, and people, and yeah, I mean they've got, and they're worth a lot of money. So these these older people that have these bigger houses, that have a lot, seem to have a lot of money, have a lot of savings. They have gardeners around all the time. They're always doing bits up to the house, and I mean, why can those people not pay the same TV license that young people do? Bearing in mind that younger people now are struggling to buy houses that these older people are living in, that already have them. And yeah, I mean, and also, like, I'm looking at, like, say, three houses across the road to me, just there and there. They're massive houses. These are massive houses, and I know that one of them is just one elderly couple. One of them, again, is another elderly couple. In fact, the four houses, one of them, the biggest one, is just one elderly lady lives there, and this is a massive house. This has got to be one, two, three, four. It's got to be 6 bedrooms. And then the other one again is a smaller house, it's a smaller bungalow, but again it's one lady that lives there. Um, so to say that older people shouldn't have to pay, yet they're clogging up large parts of this country's much needed housing market, um, by living in large houses that they've always lived in, that they actually no longer need such a large house. And then, yeah, so I mean, surely they can afford a bit of TV license. And then there is also, well, yeah, I mean, people will say, oh well, they've earned it, they've lived there or they bought it, they paid for it, they worked hard. But I mean, are you trying to tell me that people don't work hard now, and that's why we can't buy the same massive houses that these guys buy, or just buy houses full stop that these guys could buy in the past? I mean, you can't tell me that wages haven't not increased over the past good few years, which is part of the reason why people can't buy these houses. And then you also, maybe it's not over 75s, but older people that basically have bought houses in the past, they can now, they often then get a second mortgage, get a buy to let place, rent it out. I mean, that drives up house prices, takes housing stock off the market for purchasing. Obviously, it's still on the market to live in, and then they're benefiting from that cycle. I mean, obviously, I get housing is only one part of it, but what I am basically saying is that younger people have never had it so hard. Salaries and wages aren't going up. The good higher paying jobs, there's not as many of those about anymore. The prices of everything has gone up. Inflation has been eroding everyone's purchasing power up over the years. And then, yeah, I mean, if you haven't got investments in stocks or in bonds or in houses or whatever, like older people tend to have, then obviously your bonds aren't doing very well, obviously. But yeah, but it's just like, so how can we justify just saying, oh well, they shouldn't have to pay? I mean, I do get that with older people you have to give them certain concessions, like you let them have a seat on the bus rather than, do you know what I mean, you have the seat, because their body is generally more infirm than a younger person's body. So that is a perfectly justified concession to give to an older person. But to give to an older person a financial concession on the basis of their age, because that's purely what it is, isn't it? To give them a financial concession on the basis of their age when they are in a stronger financial position, it's like, that's like the ludicrousy, like, that's just like the opposite of giving them a seat on the bus because they can't stand up as well as we can. So we're gonna give them a discount, or just not have to pay the TV license because they because they're in a financially stronger position. I mean, it's like, it's inverse, isn't it, to what it should be? So those are my thoughts on it. I mean, yeah, if you think that elder people should not have to pay it, then you should also concede the fact that, you should also basically argue the fact that, well, younger people are in a financially stronger position than older people, and that on the whole isn't the case. So there we go. So we should read some of the comments. The BBC is not what it used to be, and I can understand how it's developed into what after a bit. Yeah, Yeah, but I mean that's true. I mean, the BBC tries to be politically correct, whiter than white, which is an interesting way of describing politically correct, and then in doing so, it offends intelligent people that believe in intelligent debate, not political correctness. So yeah, that is a good point. Yeah, the BBC, if they lived in a real commercial world, they would be a bit different. But yeah, I mean, I guess they live in a world where they choose not to have adverts, or they don't have adverts, so that is what we're paying for. So that doesn't pay for it. But yeah, in a commercial world, I'd have adverts. Yeah, if you watch the TV, you should have to pay for the TV, BBC. I mean, if you watch the BBC, well, I should obviously say the BBC. You might watch the TV and not watch the BBC. Then yeah, you should pay that. That sounds about right. BBC licensing fee is a tax. It doesn't offer value for money. Why do we and so many over 75s have to pay BBC World Service? What benefit to get from that? It's 12% of the BBC spend outside the UK. I mean, so this is as obviously an older person saying, why should they have to pay for it when they don't? 12% of it isn't what they use. So, and how many 80-year-olds use BBC websites? But I mean, yeah, I mean, how many do? But I'm sure more of them will be using the BBC TV, which is obviously more expensive than running a website than younger people would do. The older generation have shafted this country over Brexit. Get used to picking up the slats, guys. This is just like your pensions are going to be next. Yeah, I mean, the elder generation has done very well, basically. I mean, you can't necessarily blame it on the older generation. It's how our financial system has been run, how our fiat-based financial system has ran, and it's made it obviously harder for people over time. But you just have to take that into account when you don't pay them. So yeah, older people talk about the good old days. So if they can't afford a TV license, perhaps they can, that's just an asinine comment. We'll just ignore that. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, is not massively positive, I guess. So no license is required to keep an animal such as a dog. Why do I need one to look at a monitor? I mean, again, obviously because it needs paying for, doesn't it? But yeah, anyway, so yeah, so there we go. So that's what I think about the government's TV licensing fee for over 75s, and I mean, they're bigger. There are bigger costs for us to worry about from the cost of the license fee going up over 75s. I think a main thing we need to be concerned over is just our general purchasing power declining. Just the price inflation of everything, the inflation of everything that we have to buy, to eat, to consume, our energy, everything is all going up in price. Things get like the shrinkflation, a thing called shrinkflation, where the price may not change or only go up slightly, but the amount you get is smaller. There are lots of these issues going on at the moment. So yeah, so old and as younger people, you definitely feeling these more than the older people who are generally more asset rich, and obviously asset rich, it means rich. They're more rich, basically.